Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Lunch Hour Live here at the Boston Public Library here at the fabulous Newsfeed Cafe. I'm Sue O'Connell. Thank you so much for watching and checking us out on Facebook and Twitter. You know, it's Women's History Month. It's March. You know, I mean, every month is basically Women's History Month because we're making history every single second, but we're taking a moment this month to acknowledge that and look at the efforts of some of the women making history now in some of Boston's neighborhoods. We're going to learn more about the women who are working to keep our communities great and connected. And today we're going to look at the folks who are making a difference in East Boston. Now, East Boston, as you may know, is a vibrant community. About 40,000 folks live there, give or take 1,000 here or there. You may know East Boston for its great food, its great culture, Logan Airport, Boston Harbor, its amazing views and its great history. You may also know that East Boston has a vibrant and has had a vibrant immigrant community going back to the 1800s when Italian Americans started populating East Boston. Today, with Central and South Americans, Southeast Asian folks, the diversity that makes up East Boston and the connectivity that makes it one of Boston's greatest neighborhoods. I'm probably going to say the same thing next week when we talk about Dorchester, just as a heads up to that. But the diversity, of course, is always being challenged by the gentrification as we watch that happen, not only here in Boston, but across the country. How do you keep the character of East Boston? How do you protect the vulnerable communities as things grow and as we try and get people more involved in moving to East Boston while honoring the history and tradition and while also embracing the change that comes with so many new and wonderful residents moving in? I am joined by three women who are making an enormous difference in East Boston and in Boston at large doing the work that they do. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to you and tell you a little bit about each of their organizations.
My name is Magdelena. I'm the founder and director of the Harbor Keepers.
And what does Harbor Keepers do?
Our mission is to build coastal community resiliency, and that's broad, but there's specific programming attached to that.
I am Sandra Nijjar, founder and director of the East Boston Community Soup Kitchen.
And what's your mission?
My mission is to help our local homeless and folks who are suffering with addiction.
And my name is Madeleine Steczynski. I'm the founder and director of ZUMIX.
And your mission?
We are a youth empowerment organization. We use music and creative technology to empower young people.
Now I remind you, watching us on social media, that if you have a question or a comment for us, please just send it in the comments section. We'll bring it to our panel. If you're watching us here at the Newsfeed Cafe, just raise your hand. Someone will come over and get the question from you and ask our panel. Sandra, I want to talk a little bit about the soup kitchen. To get us set up, I want to show a video that we had made from a visit that we recently went there. So let's take a look at that.
It's been, you know, first of all, it's a privilege, but also very humbling in the sense that I'm able to serve people with my hands, but also like put me in touch with, you know, what they need. It goes from, hey, can I have a cup? Hey, can I get another plate? To talking about the importance of healthcare and how to take care of themselves, you know. Coming from a shower all the way to washing your hands, you know, trying to eat healthy. And the most important, you know, just to make the connection and to let them know that they are part of the community, and the sense of belonging, I think is crucial in that sense.
Our time just fell on us. So this was a stepping stone for us. It brings a lot of good things. Sandra helps a lot of people, do a lot of great things here, and I like the fact that we can eat on Tuesday.
The funny thing, everywhere in the center.
Yo llegué aquí buscando un abogado para que me defienda cuando me botaron de la casa. El ambiente es familiar. Sandra, una muy buena amiga.
A good friend indeed. Sandra, how did this start? How did the East Boston Community Soup Kitchen start?
It started almost 4 years ago. I became unemployed from the unemployment office. There was a massive layoff that took place. 2 big offices closed down. So there were more than 300 of us that were laid off. So that's when I decided to organize local neighbors who I knew had the same desire of creating a soup kitchen in our East Boston. I noticed that we have a group of middle-aged men that are just out there hanging out, suffering from hunger and addiction and without any resources, anything at all, because they don't have small children. They're basically left out there to just, survive in whatever way they can. So that's something that I had been wanting to do for a long time, to create a soup kitchen where we can connect them to local social services and help them get out of addiction, get out of the streets, and help them find a more stable, health care and housing and be detox.
So it's called the Soup Kitchen, but it's really a place where folks can go to get wraparound services and get information to help them with more than just a meal, right?
Yes.
And the aspect of staying connected, you talk about the challenges that so many communities face with folks, kids moving away, parents not being connected, especially within immigrant communities, where, so often you see people, come to the country, the kids grow up and they move far away and they're, isolating their parents, and you're offering a connection to the social aspect as well, right?
The social aspect, but also a community, a family community. I have high standards on my soup kitchen that everyone that comes in has to be treated equal. Everybody has to be dignified, treated with love and compassion, acceptance, non-judgmental whatsoever. Like, everybody there is the same. We're all human beings. And everybody does it, and our homeless that are constantly marginalized and are invisible to so many, they're seen and they feel seen. And that's something that no money can buy. And I love it. I love being there for them, and they love being there. So every Tuesday, we're there from 8 in the morning until 7:30 at night, providing the 3 meals, the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then basic services like, helping them connect to showers, haircuts, detox, healthcare, filling out applications for housing, employment, anything.
Everything, all the services.
Yes.
You're joining us for Lunch Hour Live here at the Boston Public Boston Public Library on WGBH. I'm Sue O'Connell. If you have some comments, please share with them. Madeleine, I want to talk about ZUMIX. How long has the organization been in East Boston? Are you the founder? And how did you come to this?
Sure. Yeah, I'm one of 2 founders, and we started in 1991. So we are just coming up on our, almost on our 30th year, 29th year.
And who do you serve?
We serve mostly young people from East Boston, but we're open to kids citywide and even in the greater Boston area. So currently about 65% of our kids are East Boston's residents. And next in line are some of the people who used to live in East Boston but have moved to Chelsea or Revere, sometimes Winthrop, sometimes as far as Lynn. And then we also have kids who come from as far as Mattapan, from other parts of the city.
And what do you do?
We offer all different kinds of programming out of school time. We also have some school partnerships, but I'll focus on the out of school time. So we have a facility, it's 3 floors, and we offer programs for young people starting at age 7, going through 18, where they can educate themselves in things that they're interested in, but that have value beyond what they're learning. So I was talking to all the people who work here at WGBH because this is the kind of path that our young people could be on, because they're learning about video production and editing, radio production and editing, studio production and editing, songwriting, communications, interviewing, journalism, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like asking every single person here, what was your path? How'd you get here? Would you be interested in coming in and talking to our young people?
How do you meet the challenges of the diversity? East Boston, I grew up in Revere, in the 60s and 70s, and East Boston was at that point primarily Italian American. Lots of folks still spoke Italian, didn't speak a lot of English. But now there are a multitude of great diversity and great cultures and great languages. How do you meet that when you're providing programming?
Well, first of all, so I moved to East Boston in 1990, and when I moved there, I mean, it is such a different reality now. When I moved there, there was an incredibly high rate of vacant property, so vacant apartments, vacant commercial spaces, boarded up buildings, et cetera. And it was a depressed economy and a pretty much forgotten neighborhood of the city. It's isolated because of the Boston Harbor. And at that time, we only had one tunnel, and it was considered a non-desirable place to live at that time. So I plunked myself right down, and I found it quite desirable. It was a really interesting community with an amazing history of activism and sort of involvement from community members. And I think it's interesting as we're sitting here and have been invited in for Women's History Month. I'm thinking about the women that I learned from. And when I first moved there, I met the iconic fighters for East Boston, Pixie Palladino, Mary Katina, many of whom are not with us anymore. But they really taught me about what they went through. Maverick Mothers is the big sort of iconic moment where women took to the streets to stop the expansion of Massport and to save their neighborhood. And so I feel really privileged that I came at a time where I got to learn and learn directly from those amazing women. And I feel like I've seen this incredible blossoming of East Boston with the influx first of Central American and then South American immigrants, even prior to that, Southeast Asian immigrants, and now Northern African and people from all over the world. And so East Boston continues to change, will always change. But there's almost no empty property in East Boston. It's become, actually, in the last 5 years, a very seriously desirable neighborhood, not only to live in, but also to develop and build property in. And there's pros and cons to that. But I'm trying to really approach all of those things by saying, we're here to engage young people in particular and give them a safe place to come and learn and grow and have high hopes for themselves and to begin that path of thinking beyond what they see in their immediate neighborhood, and to really think about how, if they put themselves on a path, they can really make the life that they want to see happen for themselves.
We're talking about Women's History Month here. We're talking to women making history in the neighborhood of East Boston. Madeleine, one of the amazing things I think that when you're growing up someplace is that, it never really occurred to me that East Boston has a seafront. Right, because you're living in the city, you're living in an urban environment. When I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of access to sailing programs or to shore programs. And one of the interesting benefits of the casino, the Encore Casino for me, is that I had the opportunity to be at the top of State Street doing an interview a couple of weeks ago. And I looked down, and of course I could see the Encore Casino, and I realized it's actually on the harbor. Like the harbor, it is a harbor hotel, and the harbor runs all the way around East Boston. What type of work are you doing and your organization doing to enrich the harbor, to protect the harbor, and to make us appreciate that we have this great harbor that surrounds East Boston?
Absolutely. The mission of Harbor Keepers is to build coastal community resiliency, and the way that we approach it is much like what Madeleine was saying, is to really take in a lot of that history. So our whole history as a neighborhood is because we are an island, right? We used to be a series of 5 islands that was, were filled in. And so a lot of what's happening now with climate impacts and resiliency, there's this whole history, before that, but now we have sort of like a duality happening. We have, a lot of the challenges of being a neighborhood that is so impacted by environmental burdens. But now, on top of that, the water is encroaching and it wants to go back to where it was. But how do we engage the community on issues of environment and coastal issues when largely the waterfront has been either, degraded, abandoned, unused, or inaccessible, right? But we are in a different world right now, where, as Madeleine was saying, it's a desirable neighborhood, and now the waterfront has become this huge investment opportunity for big developers, and it's changing, the fabric of the neighborhood. As an organization, we're here to serve everyone, and our approach is to get together, find points of collaboration, and improve waterfront spaces, get the community out on the water. I mean, it's really simple, like getting people out on the shoreline areas, understanding the coastal ecosystem, and kind of, reigniting that love of the coastline and appreciating, and also letting, finding opportunities for people to benefit from that, and everyone. So equitable resiliency is really at the core of our mission, and we do that through coastal education, going into the schools and teaching the community centers about coastal issues. We partner with institutions like the New England Aquarium and so forth. The Coast Guard, what's the role of the Coast Guard? We see them out there, but the children might not have an opportunity to understand what they do. And also, community preparedness, and we need to talk about preparedness as a neighborhood. How prepared are we for that big storm that we haven't gotten hit with? Right?
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I don't think people understand how environmentally and sort of politically under siege East Boston has been because of the location of it. Growing up with the tunnel issue, and Massport, and who is going to pay tolls. In order to actually travel throughout your own city, you have to pay a toll to go through a tunnel, and you only had one tunnel, and it really can cause the city to have the neighborhood to have a mentality in a way, but at the same time, the influx of folks moving into it give it a vibrancy that keeps everybody involved in fighting and working towards good, right?
Yeah, I mean, the geography itself set the tone of the history of East Boston because we were an island surrounded by water. And so what was interesting to me as a founder of an organization was that there was no organization doing this work, at its core.
Yes.
There was some, groups doing amazing work and collaborating, and a lot of it was volunteer-based or was a department within another organization. And, just a light bulb went off and said, we need to build a whole organization platform to do this work every single day and collaborate with our sister organizations.
Yeah, I want to talk about that and about collaboration. How do you each get the financial support that you need to keep your organizations going? Do you get financial support from the City of Boston? And how do you get emotional support for yourselves and for your organization, for your boards to continue to do your work?
Well, the Soup Kitchen is a independent grassroots organization that just became a 501c3 about 2-3 weeks ago. It's a volunteer and donation-run initiative. ZUMIX, Madeleine, has been our fiscal agent since the very beginning, first day of opening. And now we are transitioning into having, our own way of managing our funding. It's going to be hard.
You can do it, I'm sure.
Yes, we have an awesome team of board members. They're really hard workers and awesome people. And so, we collaborate with each other. Magdelena comes in and she does projects with, our Soup Kitchen guests and rock painting and just shares
So there's
information.
a collaboration between the
Yes.
organizations that help to support yourselves, both in terms of spirit as well as in terms of resources.
Right, and for me, we don't receive any resources from government or anybody. We are not affiliated to any political affairs or any organizations. We are independent. And for that, we have to always be finding a way to get funds, but we don't really use that much funds right now because we don't really need to. We just have one employee that it's an AmeriCorps, but we don't use a whole lot of money to have that person with us.
How about ZUMIX?
Well, we started off in my home in 1991, and I put $100 in a passbook account at East Boston Savings Bank, and so did my partner. So we started with a $200 budget, and we volunteered for the first 3 years and worked really hard and worked other jobs on the side to sort of make ends meet. We've grown over the years. We're serving close to 1,000 kids a year now, both in our school partnerships and in the after school. We employ 14 full-time people and an additional probably 30 part-time and contracted teaching artists and other folks, engineers and all that kind of stuff. So it's a pretty fair, from our small beginning, it's a much bigger entity. We get support from all over the place. We have a robust and very dedicated team of people who work on identifying resources, and that's primarily from foundations at this point still, private foundations, but we're really trying to ramp up, and in the last 4 or 5 years have ramped up individual giving, which is really important, and are really, like, our board is very excited about the possibility of that and the growth that can happen there, because historically we really haven't had a lot of support there. So we are literally like identifying and building relationships with people to help in that area as individuals who care about the work. We also have more support from corporate than we used to, and that's been going really, really well. And we do get some government support through Mass Cultural Council, which we love, and through City of Boston through the Community Development Block Grants, things like that.
How about Harbor Keepers?
Well, we're very young. We're very grassroots as well. We were founded in 2016, but we really didn't get started till 2017, and we worked that year on a $1,000 budget, right? So, similar to your beginnings. Then in 2019 is when we really got some private funding that was instrumental in helping us grow our programming and really get more sophisticated. And we still are not fairly compensated, but that's okay. We're getting there. But the point is that that really allowed us to really grow and create visibility and really hone in on our programming. What are the focus areas? Because really, when it comes to resiliency, there's so much you can do. If you don't focus, it's going to be hard to really hit all those targets.
It's easier to stop it than it is to fix it.
And now we
or
have-
at least, prepare for it in a way that you can minimize what the impact's going to be.
Yeah.
So we're taking your questions from Facebook and Twitter if you have some here at the audience as well. We're talking about women making history right now, making history in the communities of East Boston. Another question, that last one was from our audience. This one as well. How draining is it to work with folks who need additional support? And what do you individually, each of you, do to relax and de-stress from the work and the burden that you're carrying and all the other stuff that I'm sure you're doing besides just this?
I have animals at home. I have a dog, a sugar glider, a cat, all rescued. And I also have this horse that I go visit. It's not my own horse yet, Nugget, but I love him so much, and that's my recharge. And it's just, I go into the woods and forget about everything, and that's my therapy.
I don't know who out there asked this question. Whoever it is, raise your hand. It's a great question. And it was a question that we were actually talking about on our way over here today. Because while we're all founders and directors of our organizations, we also are all parents, and we're raising children. Our children are different ages, but the duality of that and trying to be good at both of those things simultaneously is very, very challenging. And I think all of us really do work to find places to recharge. And so I also have pets. So I get like dog walks during the day. My dog comes to work with me. So I get to, when I was leaving to come here today, she's looking at me like, is this our time? Because I'm putting my jacket on. I'm like, no, this is not your time. You stay here. I'll be back for you. But to get out into the neighborhood and walk is really great. I used to really have a routine that was really good, which was doing yoga and playing tennis regularly, and I'm not doing either of those things regularly right now. So I'm not doing what I need to do, and I know it. So it's about finding the time. And then I will say, spending time with my family and doing the things that being a parent requires, which is, cooking homemade meals and spending time enjoying meals together, helping my stepson with his homework, making sure that he's active, so going swimming with him or other kinds of things, so that, as women, we are often prioritizing other people, but at least that stuff that I'm doing with him is also, it gets me out of my professional work mode and thinking more just about how to have fun and to enjoy life.
Yeah, self-care. I mean, self-care is really critical, and sometimes we do it and sometimes we don't, right? And we get the signs and the warning signs, do when we're not doing enough self-care, and then we just regroup. But for me personally, I've recently, in the last year, been running around Deer Island. Of course, I always need to be near the water or on the water. That's just my being. My passion is the water and the harbor and the ocean. I go running around Deer Island, and that's my therapy. And then when the weather gets nice, I go sailing. But being in nature is really the way for me to recharge as well. And I encourage everybody to try and be in nature more often.
And I love the fact that, and I didn't talk about this, but I also have a backyard, so I have a little garden area. So being in nature, being connected to nature, all three of us, I think, utilize, but we're actually mostly doing that in an urban environment.
Right,
which is interesting.
Correct.
All right, so another question from our audience. It seems to be a time of alienation in the country, everywhere, people pitted against each other. How did the people of East Boston coexist and get along?
It's a great question and a loaded question.
Yeah.
Right? I can tell you from the perspective of the organization that I run is, and this was very strategically thought of from the inception of the organization, was it has to be from a point of collaboration. I mean, the core of our mission is the embrace. There is too much division, and the only way that we're going to be able to foster stewardship and a love of the coastal environment is really, we're not going to look at who's doing it and what their background is or what we're going to do this together. We cleaned up 4,000 pounds of trash along the East Boston shoreline last year. That's a lot. And the way we do it is by getting people together and collectively helping on that one cause. So for us, when we have to be really multiculturally sensitive when we are doing our engagement. It is all very strategic, and as Sandra was saying, it's all non-judgmental. We are here to try to, foster a sense of collaboration and collective action. Otherwise, we're not going to become more resilient if there's too much division going on, or if there's, some have more, others have less, where those who have more can actually pull in more resources together, and let's pull them together and let's use those resources to help the ones that don't have as much.
As we wrap up, I want to ask you, where can folks go to visit each of your organizations if they want to support or donate or volunteer? Where can they go?
I mean, come to East Boston,
Yes.
come in person.
Come and visit us.
That's the most important thing. But, all of us have online presence. You can go either to the Facebook pages or to websites or what have you to find us. And please do. Please look out. Please find us. We would love, if anybody's interested in the audience here or whatever, we would love to take you on a driving tour of our neighborhood and really have you feel it, because we're in love with our neighborhood, all of us, and we have different perspectives on what it brings and what the challenges are. But it is the best neighborhood in the city. Sorry, Dorothy.
Yes.
And Sandra, are you looking for volunteers? Are you all looking for volunteers? All of
I'm
you?
always looking for help.
Yeah, all of us.
Definitely, in every way.
All right. Well, happy Women's History Month to the three of you. I appreciate everything that you're doing for our communities, and thank you so much for coming in and spending your time with us. And I look forward to meeting you all and seeing you on the great streets of East Boston. And good old Eastie, thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for the
for coming
opportunity.
in.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching us today. I'm Sue O'Connell with WGBH. This has been Lunch Hour Live here, live at the Boston Public Library at the Newsfeed Cafe. You can tune in every Thursday and watch us, or just watch us on Facebook or Twitter. Next week, we'll be paying tribute to women working in Dorchester as we continue on. Enjoy the weekend. Take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching.